So here we have identified this value as a changing for each and every time when we record the script. So here script for the script 1 and script 2 it has changed. So we can think that okay, this is the value which is changing. So we need to correlate this. Okay, so to say this is the value which is changing, this is nothing but a session value. So we need to handle this to correlate. So this is the reason why we are seeing a difference in recorded and replay window. See here on your left side is the recorded and right side is the replay. So the value is getting. So we can do and correlate this value. So let us see how to correlate this value. So there are some steps everyone follows their own method to correlate. Let me show how I can do that. So first, in order to correlate, you must select the whichever the value which is changing. Just copy that correlated value which you want to do and go to your output log. Therefrom, go to your code generation log and you must go to the top of the correlation value. So code generation log. So just by clicking on the control home, you can go to the code generation top and therefrom you just go and put the value whatever you want to find in the code generation log. So let me tell you what are the steps first. So since this is a value which comes as part of the request, so this value may be occurred in any of the previous requests. So we need to capture this value, which is this may be coming very dynamically. So that's why this recorded session is not sufficient to handle the right response or to get the right response. So what we are doing is we'll be going to do capture this value as part of the request one, or we will be finding where it is occurring, for which response it is occurring, and we will form a correlation value. So let's do that. So I'm going to the top of the correlation code generation log and I'm just clicking on the next. So it is showing me this has been occurred for this line. So we are seeing that value here. So let me show you that again. So I just pasted that value here, whatever we captured from the script, and I'm just clicking on next. So it will automatically highlight where that value. Sometimes though if you search for that, you may not be seeing that value appeared in the code generation log. So means it may be not part of your response. Sometimes these kind of values may be generated as part of your browser script. So the values if generated as part of your browser scripts, those cannot be identified in your code generation log. So right now it has been identified in our response. Nothing but we are seeing that the whole line here. Just copy that line. Now we need to identify for which request it has been coming as part of the response. So as we see previously seen in our session, so every request has been identified by a unique snapshot. Okay, the very first request which comes as part of snapshot, so that snapshot name is t1.inf, and for the second request t2.inf, and for the third request t3. So for every request is uniquely identified by a snapshot number. So we can make use of this snapshot to identify which request it would be. Before going to that steps, I will show you for which request has been occurred. We maybe have already seen how this code generation log will looks like and how response and then request everything will be formed from here. Let's scroll very slowly and look at for which request has been occurring. Now I'm showing one way to identify for which request it has identified. So what we need to do is, so once you find that respective value in your response, then select, then again in a search box press $. So then your cursor must be here, your cursor must be placed after the whatever the request value that you want, whatever the value that you want to identify. So this value has been identified here, so I'm putting my cursor here, then go to your search and put $. So it will go and find the appropriate request URL where it has been identified. Okay, see we got the $. Here. So if you scroll down a bit, it will show you for which request it has been occurred. See, if you look at, it has been occurred for CGI bin welcome PL dot welcome PL question mark sign off equal to true. So you can copy this and you can search it in your script from the starting. So I'm going to my script starting and pressing Control F. I'm searching for the URL. See, it is showing me that okay, this URL is occurring at very first place. So here is the place that you need to handle the correlation. Means for this particular request, this dynamic value or this session value is been occurring. Okay, so we can form the correlation value for this request. Okay, if once we form the correlation, so your correlation will capture this particular value dynamically, and after that we can pass it to your second request. Okay, so before implementing it, so let's look at what is a correlation function that we normally use in our day-to-day life to handle the correlation. We are having three kind of correlation functions. The very first one is the Weybridge save param function. This function is being used for a while, okay, which is been occurring from very earlier versions of the Loadrunner. So recently they have introduced another two correlation functions, Weybridge save param X. So this is the second correlation fund which is been coming from the Loadrunner 11 version, and Weybridge save param rejects, which is also been introduced in the recent versions of the Loadrunner. So let's look at, we will be using Weybridge save param at first. As we just seen, we will be using here Weybridge save param X function. Since we identified previously, so our correlation value, so this value which we need to correlate, so this has been occurring as part of first response. Okay, so we're going to form the correlation here using the Weybridge save param function. So we can select Weybridge save param. We can write the function here, Weybridge save param. So this is the function. Weybridge save param function takes some arguments. I will show what are they. So by default, the very first one is the parameter name. Like if you want to give some name to the Weybridge save param, so we can give it as a very first parameter as a Weybridge save param is a parameter name. What is the name that you want to give for the correlation value? And it will take the next argument as left boundary and the next argument as right boundary and LAST. So this is the function terminator to say no more arguments available after this. So Weybridge save param by default we must supply all these the values. So it is nothing but the parameter name, left boundary and right boundary. And the last, so last is a terminator, so which we must include. Now to complete the correlation, let's go back and we can capture the whole line from our record generation log. So here to capture this particular value, you must capture the whole line where you found it. See here, we found this value here, and I'm just right now I'm copying the whole value where it is occurred, and I'm putting it in my request and just commenting it out. Okay, so I'm giving a comment with the slash slash, so I'm putting that value here so it will not impact my script to get any errors or warnings. So now what we need to do here, if you want to do correlation for this value, whatever the value before to that value will become as a left boundary. See now, right now I have highlighted the left boundary, so this is before to the value, and after to the value will become a right boundary. Now let's look at how it can be formed. I'm selecting the whole value before to that, whatever the value that we need, I'm putting it as a left boundary. I'm putting in the place of LB, after LB equal to that value. And here if you see that it is showing something like some syntax level coloring matching. So we must, one thing we need to remember here. So whenever you're doing a correlation, if your correlation is having any double quotes, if your correlation is having any double quotes, we must escape them using slash. So before substituting itself, I'm escaping in our commented section. So wherever you see the double quote, you must escape with a slash. Look at here, I'm put escaping each and every double quote with slash. So instead of pasting this value in the left boundary and submitting the slash with escaping, you must escape there in our example, and then you can substitute your left and right boundary. So that would not show any, that would not throw any special, or that would not throw any syntax errors. Now let's copy the right boundary. Just say okay. So we have copied our right boundary. So as soon as you complete your correlation, you just simply go and click on compile to show up if we have any compilation errors. I will show if we are not escaping any double quotes, it will throw compilation errors. I will show you now here. So let me remove the escape values for the double quotes and submit as it is. It will show up some syntax errors. See, I just submitted and I'm compiling now here. See, it has thrown up lot of errors. Right, so make sure that whenever you try to put any double quotes in your correlation, you must escape them in slash. So now we have made a correlation with a proper left and right boundary. So I'm giving a name for the correlation as a correlation. So what is the appropriate name that we need to give here in your real-time situations? Like, you don't need to give whatever the name that you wanted to. It is a best practice to give whatever the name that you see for that value. See here, user session is the name for that value. So I'm going to put the correlation name as user session. Now let's, as soon as you completed forming a correlation value, you just need to replay once. So before replaying once, there's one setting that you need to identify, that you need to enable in your runtime settings. Just go to the runtime settings, and in log you must always select extended log, so it will show up the correlated value. If it is capturing anything as part of request, as part of response, it will show up the value. So you must select extended log and parameter substitution, so that it will show up the whatever the values it has been captured in your replay log. So your replay log will show up all the correlated values in your replay log. Okay, it will show in a blue color. So I just enable the advanced settings for the replay log. Let me rerun it. The replay is going on. Yeah, it's done now. So let's go back and look at the replay log one after the other. So replay, see here, what as I just earlier, your correlations will appear in the blue color. See, user session, the value whichever we just correlated is been occurring in our replay log, means our correlation is successful. So you are able to capture that value. But let's look at, as we just discussed, we have already captured the correlation, but it is not able to show the appropriate response in my replay. Why? Because we captured the correlation, but we never substituted in our request place in appropriate request. So our next step is to substitute the correlation. So copy your correlation name and go back to the request wherever it occurs. Just replace it with between the curly braces, as we previously seen it for the same level of curly braces for the parameters or parameterization. So we do the similarly for the correlation. So in the place of whatever the dynamic value that you are seeing, just replace it with a user session. So this is how we do correlation, and this is how we do the substituting the correlation. So the first step we are capturing the correlation, and in the second step we are substituting the correlation. So likewise, we need to substitute everywhere wherever we are seeing that value. So there is a short way how to do that. So select that value, press Ctrl H, and put the replace with option and replace all. So it will go and replace everywhere. So this is how we capture and substitute the correlation.